It's a beautiful morning on this Wednesday. The temperature is maybe 28, 30 degrees. The sun is out and it is gorgeous. And we are beginning a wonderful congregational journey through the story. The problem we have in the United States is that people think they know Christianity. Many of us, even in the church, think we know what the Bible teaches, and yet the biblical illiteracy, misunderstandings abound. The benefit of the story is that it picks up from the beginning in Genesis, and it chronicles for us how God comes again and again and again, in love, in judgment, for the sake of justice, in order to bring us closer to Himself and to draw us near to God's heart and God's will. And so we begin with chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, God. The point of Genesis is not to tell us how God created, but that God created. I've always found it fascinating, this conversation around creationism versus Darwinianism. I had a biology teacher in college who was a devout Christian and a brilliant scientist. He said, "I believe God created. I happen to believe that evolution is how God did it. It's up to you to decide." I mean, after all, no one was taking notes like a laboratory experiment. And the Bible is less interested in how God created, but that God created, that there is a design and a purpose. And the Bible wants to say that God's intent was that it would be good. Over and over again in chapter 1, we will hear, and God saw that it was good, and God saw that it was very good. The intent of God is that creation would explode with wonder and joy, and we would participate in it, and it would be good. Now, you may be wondering what happened. And that's what Genesis 3 is all about. The intention of God was disrupted. God loved us so much that God has allowed us to make choices. Freedom brings with it the possibility of making bad decisions. And Genesis 3, which we talk about in terms of the fall of Adam and Eve, the fall from grace, is all about wrong-headed choices. The brilliance of the biblical narrative, the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, is that God's love creates opportunities for us to decide, and God does not control our decisions, but rather will work with them. And so God's intent was that days would always be like this, but we know they're not. There are days of freezing rain and tornadoes and hurricanes. God's intent was that the world would always be lush and green, and yet this tree is in hibernation. And tragically, there are buds on this tree. And if there is a deep freeze, this tree might die. After the fall, God's intent is to work to bring life back into creation. I hope when you come on Saturday night or Sunday for worship, when you come on Wednesday evening when we talk about what went wrong, that you'll have a great conversation about God's design, God's intent, and what tragically went wrong. Happy reading.